Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny back with Kenny Squared. Welcome back to Sports on a Positive Tip. We have conversations at the intersection of sports and faith. Kenny, no truth to this rumor, I don't think. I had to dig around for it this morning, but no truth to the rumor that the Los Angeles Dodgers have acquired Giannis and have signed him to like a 10-year contract. I wish that was my original one. I saw that online yesterday. I thought it was pretty clever. But we're going to really get into Giannis and maybe the possibility of Giannis to the Knicks and how we both feel about that. Really anxious to hear your thoughts on that. But what I'd like to talk about here in the opening is Eli Manning and Bill Belichick. Let's get Eli out of the way. I don't mean it like that, but let's talk about Eli real quick because I think that'll be brief. Um, Disappointed that Eli is not making the second year of eligibility cut?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm also getting nervous that he's probably not going to make it at all because
Really?
you got a lot of guys like big names coming up behind him.
Right.
Like, got
Yeah.
guys like Drew Brees, Tom Brady, like some of the legends of the game. And it's going to be hard for him. Like, compared to those guys, it's hard. But also, like, he had two of the greatest Super Bowl runs ever. He's top 10 in passing yards ever. I know, like, his overall record isn't great, but like you can't tell the story of football without Eli Manning in there, stopping the Patriots from going 19-0.
Oh, yeah, yeah, and especially Giants football. There's a few guys that I compare him to. Ben Roethlisberger, I think, because they came out around the same time, and Roethlisberger won two Super Bowls. So did Eli. Um, the other guy I compare him to a little bit is Kurt Warner, who's in the Hall of Fame, and his run was great, but it was also kind of limited, right? It was just for several years, and then he had the great run with the Cardinals, taking them to the Super Bowl. But I unequivocally, my opinion. I think Eli Manning is a Hall of Famer. I think though the overlooking thing wouldn't be anything new for his career because I think while he was playing, he got overlooked a lot. And certainly, I mean, when Peyton Manning is your big brother, that may happen. But I think some of his peers, he was overlooked as well. So we'll see. But the big news was Belichick, and I think after the dust settled, and I started watching. I watched part of the interruption yesterday, and Mike Wilbon put a pretty good I don't know, it's not a spin, but where it might make some sense. So, of course, Bill Belichick is the greatest coach of all time in football, right? Some people say greatest in sports, that's debatable, but certainly I don't think it's debatable in football. Certainly also it's not too debatable that at times Belichick was a little unlikable, right? And that shouldn't have anything to do with anything, right? When it comes to this. But now we talk about, Spygate, which again, if you watch that documentary, he stops very short, a little bit short of totally admitting what he did. He doesn't deny it at all, right? With Spygate. And then you have the deflate thing, which seemed like it was a little bit more on Tom Brady, which, questions whether they'll make him wait as well, which would be ridiculous because he's the greatest quarterback of all time, my opinion. I think yours as well. But but what Wilbon said, and here's why I want to hear your thoughts. He said that maybe some of the writers felt like some of these old veterans, this was their last time that they could get in, and they figured Belichick's going to get in anyway. That they shifted their vote over to guys. I'm just going to say the names, and you probably don't know. In fact, I'm sure you never saw any of these guys play, and you might have heard of them. But L.C. Greenwood, defensive tackle with the Steelers, he was a great player. I was surprised that he wasn't in. Kenny Anderson was a excellent quarterback with the Bengals, got them to the Super Bowl in the early 80s. And Roger Craig was a great running back with the 49ers in their run in the 80s and 90s. So that was his thinking there that maybe and I think one writer has come out and said that's what they were thinking that Belichick's going to get it anyway. That first ballot doesn't matter. Or they felt he's going to have enough votes that he's going to get in, and it wasn't a thing that they didn't like him. Now the whole Bill Polian thing, Bill Polian hasn't said anything. Although I'm sorry, let me take that back. He did say he did say he voted for Belichick, and then I think he said, "I'm 95% sure I did."
I
Now,
forgot who I voted for.
right, exactly. Now he's a little up there in age, right? Polian was around for a long time, and he's up there in his mid 80s, I think. Anyway, let me get your take on this whole thing.
Well, as far as Belichick goes, if he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, no coach should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, he's
Agreed.
got more wins, more Super Bowl wins than any coach. Second most regular season wins. Like the guy has the resume to make it there. Like if he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, when Andy Reid retires, he shouldn't be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
to me, that's it kind of feels like it's a very petty thing. And I like the Bill Polian aspect of like they're trying to punish him for the things that he did. Like football doesn't have like the morality clause like the baseball Hall of Fame does. Like so you can't really punish guys for not doing it.
Yeah.
Also, if you legitimately forgot who you voted for, that's a problem in and of itself. It tells me that you shouldn't be voting on things like this.
Yeah.
But it is kind of a disgrace to the Hall of Fame,
It
and it's
really.
something we don't usually see in football because usually baseball, it's like, well,
Yeah.
the guy with the most MVPs isn't in, the guy with the most home runs isn't in, the guy
Yeah.
with the most hits isn't in, the guy with the most Cy Youngs isn't in. Like we see that, but that would be like saying Joe Torre isn't a first ballot Hall of Famer as a manager because he had guys that took steroids on his team. Like it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. And I think this is because Ken, and you're a little bit of a traditionalist, even though you're only 35 years old, right? It, it- but I think a lot of people your age and under, this is why they don't even bother taking the Hall of Fame seriously, because you look at you made a great point there with the baseball guys and oh my gosh, Andy Reid's not going to get in on the first ballot now, maybe. Or imagine they do that to Tom Brady, holding if it's by those standards of because he didn't pay enough penance or whatever. Both those guys, I mean, Brady got suspended, right? First 4 games of that year. Belichick paid a hefty fine, and I think he got suspended for the Spygate thing. It's just really, really silly. And you're right. If you don't remember who you voted for, come on. All right, let's get into the show. We're going to talk about the 2 coaching hires this week in the NFL. Who's still left? Championship Sunday was great. And we've got a Super Bowl matchup. We can preview that next week, but we'll talk about Baseball Hall of Fame. And we'll talk about the NBA, but specifically Giannis. Should the Knicks go all in? We'll have some inspiration as well. Ready to get this going?
Let's get into it.
Go.
This episode of Sports on the Positive Tip is brought to you by the Tavern Coffee House. Attention, coffee lovers! Are you craving the perfect cup of coffee to start your day? Well, look no further than the Tavern Coffee House. It's located at 12302 Buckeye Road in Cleveland, Ohio. You can also check them out and order your coffee at thetaverncoffee.com.
Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny and
Kenny squared.
the Sports on the Positive Tip podcast. Kenny, what a week it was. Championship Sunday. Football season is fading away slowly. One more game left. And Championship Sunday was great. We'll get to that in a few seconds. But a couple of more coaching vacancies were filled this week. I want to start with the Steelers and Mike McCarthy. And we had talked about him last week, I believe. On the last few weeks, we had talked about him. He gets another shot with, now he's not going to be there 20 years, Mike McCarthy, but he gets a shot with the Steelers. So he gets to take over, I think, a good team. They're not a great team by any means, but it'll be very ironic if Aaron Rodgers does come back for another year and they won a Super Bowl together. Seems like ages ago, and ironically against the Steelers. But what were your thoughts initially with Mike McCarthy finally getting another shot here, but another shot here with the Steelers?
Well, I think he deserved another shot. I'll say
Yeah.
that to start because I think he's a good head coach. He got 12 win seasons from the Cowboys in 3 straight years, got them to the playoffs. Like, he's a very good head coach. Kind of seems like a weird hire for the Steelers, who have had 3 other head coaches in the last like 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
So, like, from that aspect, it's a little odd. To me, the most bizarre thing, though, is McCarthy and Rodgers wasn't a good relationship towards the end.
Well, that's
So,
true.
like,
Yeah, that's true.
but I wonder if, like, time heals all wounds and, like, things end up a little bit better. But also, if Aaron Rodgers doesn't come back, once again, what's their plan? Like, Are they going to trade for like because it's hard to imagine them going out and drafting a rookie in the late first round because like that
Right.
I don't know what number their pick is, but they're picking in the 20s.
Yeah.
Um, or do you like trade for a veteran? Do you trade for like let's say a Kyler Murray or somebody like that?
Yeah.
I don't know, but I do like the hire. I think you could also make the argument that Mike McCarthy is the best coach in that division, which I think is a huge advantage. I mean, we see it in like we've seen in the last four teams that like the teams that played on conference championship Sunday, all of them had great head coaches.
Yeah.
So like head coaching matters, and if you have the best head coach in your division, that's a huge advantage.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
um, we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I don't have anything to add to that. But now really want to get your opinion on the Browns picking Todd Monken really over Jim Schwartz. It looks like it came down to both those guys as Mike McDaniel had bowed out from the coaching search. What's the reaction there?
Well, the head coaching search was weird, really from the start. I don't know if you've seen any of the stuff about it, but apparently they had guys writing essays as to why they should be the head coach and giving them homework.
Wow.
The Browns think that they're doing things very innovatively, and everyone is just staring at them, wondering why they're doing what they're doing.
Right.
Like, and I like the Browns. Like, I root for them. I hope that they do well, but like, it just
Yeah.
seemed kind of bizarre. Um, but a lot of the reaction to hiring Todd Monken was a little bit negative. Um, because a lot of people are kind of it came out of nowhere because the assumption was Jim Schwartz was going to be the guy, or if not Jim Schwartz, there's been a couple other guys. Oh gosh, I'm forgetting his name. The offensive coordinator for Jacksonville,
Right.
one of the guys on the Rams staff. Like those were guys that they were targeting, and then they go with Todd Monken, who like has never been a head coach. He's 63 years old, and you're kind of wondering how long is he going to do this? And also, he's never been a head coach, so we don't know if he has like the resume and the track record that'll actually work in this spot.
Yeah.
Um, so we'll see. It'll be interesting, I think.
Yeah.
But one of the bigger concerns for a lot of people is Jim Schwartz is basically leaving.
Oh yeah, he's
Um,
insane. Yeah, he's like he. It sounded like he was very angry, disappointed that he didn't
yeah,
get the job. Yeah.
like he's still under contract for next year, but basically it was like, yeah, I'm not coming back, and
No,
I
but
don't blame
somebody will
him.
hire him. Yeah, somebody will
Yeah,
hire him. Yeah.
so it'll be very interesting. I don't know if it makes it better, and it still doesn't answer a lot of the weird questions surrounding like who's the starting quarterback next year. I
Yeah.
guess you have to start your Pro Bowler Shador Sanders.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
that's a whole other story, right? Um, you made a great point that I had when I wasn't too familiar with Tom Monken, except that apparently that was one of the reasons why the Ravens parted ways with Harbaugh because Harbaugh didn't want to part ways with Monken. And so who knows if that's all true? I don't think they'll ever talk about that publicly. But you're right, Monken is not like a young up and coming, 35-year-old coordinator. He's been around the league for a long time, and maybe that experience will serve him well. Because this is I think out of the jobs, man, I thought this was probably the toughest to take over because while Stefanski, I thought did a really good job. It's just these last 2 years and Deshaun Watson now coming back with all the quarterback stuff this year. It just seemed like a dysfunction, there with the Browns. So it's almost like you need a culture shift, and maybe Monken can do that. But Schwartz was you can't say much against Cleveland's defense. They were one of the top ones in the NFL this year. So, but maybe they view Schwartz as part of the culture problem. I don't think so. But I would have thought that job really begged for an experienced, head coach that's been around the block that has their own culture, has their own, way of building culture. And there weren't a ton of guys like that available unless he just didn't want it, like Sean McDermott, I thought would have been ideal for that job. Um, I thought even McDaniel, even though, the last year or two in Miami wasn't great, You think about his first 4 or 5 years there, and it was so. It was an odd hire. I could see the Brown fans being like, really, But who knows? He may come in and do a great job. I think he's going to have to definitively say who his quarterback is. Not now, but in training camp very early. I think once you get to preseason, I think he's going to have to say, well, Deshaun Watson is the guy. Shador Sanders is his backup. We're going to use Sanders in some other sets and let's go. Take away that stuff. And leave the defense alone. Get a good coordinator. The defense is going to be fine. They bring back most of their players. So I could see the fans there being a little shaky. It was so funny. We'll get to the NBA later, but I texted you and said, "Hey, is there any buzz about Lakers Cavs because this may be LeBron's last time coming back there?" Which I don't think it is. I don't think he's going to retire. He would have probably announced it by now, right? But but you said no. I didn't even know that they were playing. You said the buzz is around the coaching. So it's definitely a Browns town there. So and we see that here in the offseason where I thought it was a big regular season game, national television, and big with LeBron and Cavs rose up and they just spanked the Lakers. We'll get to that in a bit. So the Cardinals and the Raiders are the only two openings still left, right? Do I have that right?
Yeah, they're the only two left.
Yeah. I wonder what they're waiting on. I would have thought they'd have snatched up somebody that would have been good. Now, maybe the Raiders were waiting on Tom Brady to finish fulfill his assignments with Fox, because I'm sure Brady will probably have the first and last say, I bet, when it comes to hiring a coach. So maybe they were waiting on him. Maybe they were waiting on to see if, Sean McVay would slip out, which ain't gonna happen. I don't think unless McVay, I think one day will leave and probably go to TV. I don't see him coaching another team, but it's really, really interesting. We get to Championship Sunday. I think what I find interesting, and you said this, that these four coaches are great coaches, but you never hear anything about the Seattle coach, Mike McDonald. It's like he's very totally in the background. But we'll get back to him, I'm sure, next week as we preview the big game. So let's start with Pats and the Broncos. Pats are back in the Super Bowl. Amazing. What were your takeaways from Pats Broncos and that blizzard in Denver?
Oh man, I I really wish that that kicker made a couple extra kicks, and I'm sick of Patriot fans acting like they're the best ever. It, it's already annoying to me.
Yeah.
It's like it's like they're like, oh yeah, we have second graders that haven't seen a Patriots championship. Yeah, we have Browns fans that are filing for Social Security and have never seen a championship.
Jet fans too. Yeah.
Jet fans
Browns have
too.
never
Like,
been to a Super Bowl. The Browns have never been to a Super Bowl. This is Super Bowl number 60, and they've never been. So, yes. Yeah, I agree with you there. Go ahead.
um, but I think because it's interesting the narrative behind the Patriots because you have a lot of people saying, oh well, they've had the easiest playoff run up, which like I get what you're saying because like you look at the three opponents that they face, none of them had a quarterback or a roster that was comparable to the Patriots. Um, but also, and also the other thing is like, well, on the Patriots side, everyone's saying, oh yeah, we faced three of the top five defenses in the league, which is true. But you also saw it reflected in how you play it. Like Drake May has not played well throughout these playoffs.
Yeah.
I think that between Drake May and a little bit of Mike Vrabel, that's the only way they got to the playoffs. But it's been their defense that's carried them the entire
Their defense is
um,
great. Yeah. Yeah.
and and that's the thing. Like I'm iffy on my Super Bowl pick as of right now. I lean Seahawks, but like if the Patriots are going to win the Super Bowl, it's going to be because of their defense.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. They've got a
but
great.
also we did say anyone out of the AFC could probably make it all the way there, and sure enough, like they've really showed how important and how quickly you can turn it around with the right coach and with the right quarterback in place.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
like Mike Vrabel in his first year is getting is going to the Super Bowl as head coach of the Patriots.
Yeah.
With the Titans, he had Ryan Tannehill as the number one seed. Like That's
Yeah,
hard to do. Like,
yeah.
what has Ryan Tannehill done since then?
He he's a winner of Vrabel, right? Won two Super Bowls with the Patriots as a player. And I thought I heard this right, and he's the first player to win a Super Bowl on the same team and then take that team as a coach to the Super Bowl. And so I think that's a great accomplishment. The coaching though, and I want to ask you about two of these plays, but first I just want to stay on that for a second because that great defensive lineman that they have, that great cornerback, Rodriguez that they have, their great running back, all those guys were with them last year. And and this is where no knock on the previous coach, Gerard Mayo, but this is where that great coaching really comes in. It's not like, okay, they got Stephon Diggs, who's done a really great job, right, with them. But it's not like they got a bunch of big free agents and filled in their roster like that. They've been building this back since they had the bad records in the last years of Belichick. And so, but now you get a coach that kind of puts it all together and you go from like 4-13 the year before and they're sitting in the Super Bowl. And a Hall of Fame coach, another one is Sean Payton. But I thought that he made a couple of really he made the one bad error here. And that was and so what did you think about that? Because I even thought about it at the time. I started to text you and say, man, he's got to go for the field goal here. I know it's late in the first half, right? But and you go up 10-0, and did he know or not know that there was a blizzard coming, right? Because again, the forecast changes like that in Colorado, especially Denver. That's just how it is there, right? And that blizzard was blinding, and then nobody could kick a field goal, right? The ball was going all over the place after that. But that was a big deal. He goes for it on fourth down, doesn't get it, and then the Patriots come back and score before the half is down. He could have went up 10-0. Instead it's 7-7, right, at the half. And so did you think about that at the time? And did you think that was because Peyton is getting killed for that, you know?
Yeah, I thought at the time it was an iffy move. Maybe he really didn't trust his kicker too.
Yeah,
Even though like it wasn't like crazy at the time, maybe they were still worried about the conditions.
yeah,
But either way, like you got to go for the points. I know he said like the we were trying to really take a step up. Like 14 points wins you the game. 13 points wins you the game.
yeah. It's that
So
kind of game. Yeah, yeah.
so yeah, I think you got to go for it at least.
Yeah, and their backup QB, I thought did well, but the second half he didn't. I mean, the weather seemed like it bothered everybody. Makes that big play though on fourth down, right, where he does the bootleg and he gets the first down, and that sealed the game. But it was amazing how he outran that very good. Is this Singletary? That very good linebacker for the Broncos or Singleton. It wasn't the most entertaining game in the world, but it was kind of old school football, playing in a blizzard like that. And then you have the Rams and the Seahawks, which was the opposite. Crazy entertaining game, back and forth. What were some of your takeaways, Seahawks Rams?
I loved that game. I thought it was a very great back and forth game. And I think this was Sam Darnold's best game that he's ever played.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Um,
No, it's okay.
I I did think about this. This is like the nightmare Super Bowl scenario for Jets fans. Your division rival is back in there,
Yeah.
and just like that, the guy that you drafted and thought was good, but then wasn't good, is now in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah.
But I think what really stuck out to me is how well he played against potentially the MVP of the league. Like Matthew Stafford and Sam Darnold went toe to toe.
Yeah.
And like it was a really good back and forth game. And yeah, I look at that last play and I'm like, man,
Yeah.
just a couple inches and things could have gotten very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Um, but kudos to Sam Darnold, who like you look at his journey between the Jets and then going to the Panthers and 49ers
Yeah.
and then balling out for Minnesota, only to kind of get discarded for nine.
Yeah.
Um, but like I do think it's a good testament to coaching. You talked about Mike McDonald kind of being in the background. I think he's very much in the background, but is a huge part of this kind of new culture with the Seahawks. So good
Yeah.
for them. I think their defense also is a little underrated. I
Yeah.
know they didn't play that great in the championship game, but I think they're really good.
Yeah.
Um, last thing I'll say is the Pope trend continues.
Oh,
Uh,
does it really? Okay.
yeah, the last three times that we elected a new Pope, the Seahawks made the Super Bowl.
Uh, okay. Okay. That is so interesting. The Seahawks, this is none of these players were around, obviously, nor the coaches, but it's time for them to kind of right or wrong. That's still that Super Bowl where Malcolm Butler gets the interception was still one of the best and worst endings of a Super Bowl ever to me, because I mean it screamed for give it to give it to Marshawn Lynch. Give it to Marshawn Lynch, who was killing, the Pats that day all year long. I mean, Lynch was the ultimate fullback that will run right over you, but it was just an awful play, and maybe the Seahawks can extract some revenge of that game. There were those two plays though, right, where and Sean McVay, listen, is also a Hall of Fame coach like Payton, but I thought he made two, and again, this wasn't a second guess here, and I think that they didn't get the information up to Jim Nantz and Tony Romo quick enough, because I thought that challenge towards the end, which they were saying, oh, he didn't challenge it, which was the first down marker, which I guess you could go either way. For me, it didn't look like he made the first down on that big fourth down play towards the end, but I guess he did challenge the marker, because all of a sudden, he went from having two timeouts to having one. And then it was a minute or two later that, because I said, well, how did that go to one? Is that just a mistake? Did he, but he had the red challenge flag in his hand. So I'm thinking he must have picked it up. But that was huge to me to then just have one timeout left, and then he uses it right away, which I was surprised at. So thus, on the last play, Nakua doesn't get all the way out of bounds. I thought that was pretty clear. Whereas that if he had had another timeout in his back pocket, the Rams were moving the ball, which they did all day. So I was surprised at that. What were your thoughts on that he did challenge that and then use the other timeout almost right away?
Yeah, sometimes I know there's the strategy of using timeouts early, especially like to kind of give you as much time as possible. But also, you have Matthew Stafford. You don't need a lot of time.
Right.
Like you only need maybe a minute, and also like working the sidelines really well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it might have been a little premature.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought so. And then and this wasn't a second guess either. And I was surprised it became a big deal after, because when they scored the touchdown to make it 24-19, I'm saying, this is probably a good time to go for the two-pointer here, right? Because you make it 24-21, now you're a field goal away, from tying it. Eventually you're going to have to do that anyway if the way this game is going, but he didn't. He went for the one-pointer, so it's 24-20. And that's, to me, that was a big deal, because they got into field goal range on that last drive, but there was nothing, it wouldn't have mattered, right? They had to score a touchdown, because they still had the 4-point lead, 31-27. I thought that those were two misses on McVay. Maybe I'm being a little picky, but I saw that a lot also picked apart on Monday by a lot of commentators. I was a little bit surprised he didn't go for the two-pointer there. You miss it, you miss it. It doesn't matter, right? You're by 4 points and 6 points. But if you're down by three, and you kind of the way that game was going, I don't know. What did you pick that up as well?
I didn't as much, but it definitely makes sense. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
getting that extra advantage where you're forcing the other team to go the length of the field is big.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And they were moving on that last drive, and they were in field goal range, and the conditions certainly wasn't like, the conditions in Denver. Their kicker could have made, a 40, 50-yard field goal. Um,
Oh, with
yeah,
that,
yeah,
this is the first. playoffs in like I think 14 years, where all the games were played in open air stadiums.
Oh wow. Okay. How many years?
Something like 14, 15. It's been a minute.
Wow. Wow.
Which
Yeah.
once we have a few new stadiums coming in, Cleveland, Kansas City, potentially Chicago. Once all those go in, we're gonna have more domes than not domes. So it's
So
interesting.
Kansas City's going to be a dome
I believe so, yeah.
in Chicago as well?
That's the thought right now, yeah.
Okay. Okay. And Cleveland, is that going to be a dome as well?
Cleveland is gonna be a dome, yeah.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Interesting. And the Super Bowl is going to be played outside too, right? But in Santa Clara, where the weather's not going to be hot, but it'll be good, I would think. All right. So Pat Seahawks, we'll get to that next week. We'll break it down and have our preview. This is a good matchup, I think. I think it's going to be exciting. I think now people have gotten a chance to see this new version of the Patriots these last few weeks, and they're a fun, exciting team. Whether you like the Patriots or not, or their fan base, they're different from the Brady-led, Belichick-led, evil empire Patriots. This team I think is a lot more likable. So all right, want to talk a little baseball Hall of Fame?
Yeah, let's get into it.
All right. Well, we didn't talk too much about last week. So Carlos Beltran and Andrew Jones get in. These are players from the era that you grew up in and watched. And I watched Beltran every day for almost 7 years with the Mets. We watched Beltran have some of the best playoff series ever of anyone. He was a huge postseason player. I know he's known a little bit for that strikeout against Adam Wainwright, but putting that aside, I thought Beltran was a great player, great center fielder. And then you have him, though, right in the thick of this scandal with the Astros, which is why a lot of folks don't think that he got in right away. I'm not sure that Beltran was a first ballot Hall of Famer anyway, but he's in, and I don't think it matters to him, which is great. Andrew Jones, known for being a great defensive center fielder, and he was. But it was almost like he looked like, if you remember Andrew Jones, it looked like he wasn't hustling, right? Because he always knew where these fly balls were going to drop, and you'd see him get to that spot right away, and then he snatch it with the one hand and everything. It was a little bit of a hot dog, but he had some big offensive years with the Braves and the Dodgers. Um, and then you've got also Jeff Kent, someone who you saw play quite a bit, who got in with the Veterans Committee. Give me your overall assessment. Was these two guys deserving? Well, these are two guys you were expecting to get in. And then we could talk about some guys that are getting a little closer and the class of 2027. So go ahead. What were your thoughts?
Well, I believe since 1981, there have been two guys that primarily played center field that made the Hall of Fame before this year.
Wow. Wow.
I want to say Kirby Puckett and Ken Griffey Jr. are the only two.
Wow. That's surprising.
Um,
Yeah.
but obviously, like Beltran, I know he played the corner outfield as well,
He
but
did. Yep. Yep.
like primarily a center fielder, also Andrew Jones. Andrew Jones, I think, is one of the best defensive center fielders in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Like you can make a case for Jim Edmonds, you can make a case for probably a couple other people. Like the combination of having like great power as well as great defense, it's rare, especially in center field where you really like where you prioritize the defense, but then he could throw out a 40 home run year or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that he got in. That Braves team now, um, I believe has six Hall of Famers on their roster from the
Wow.
90s.
Wow. Okay.
Between the two Joneses, you
Yeah.
got oh yeah, it is six because you got Maddox, Glavine, Smoltz, and Fred McGriff.
Yeah.
Whatever couple years he was there. So
Yeah. Yeah.
good
Yeah.
for them.
Yeah.
Um, Carlos Beltran, I don't know if I've seen what hat he's going in as. I would assume a Met, but I don't know. I haven't actually looked at it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I think he's a good example of a guy that's really, really good that becomes very, very special in the postseason.
Yeah.
I think back to his bizarre run with the Astros.
Yeah.
Well, I
first
guess he
time around.
technically was there twice. The first time around,
Yeah.
um, being a being a huge reason why they made the World Series back in 2005.
Yeah.
He's like you could argue the reason.
Yeah.
Um, I think you had said, yeah, definitely not a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think something that kind of gets left out a little bit with him, and I'm curious once Altuve and Bregman retire, if it's going to affect them. But definitely, they say that he was a big part of the 2017. Obviously, the Mets fired him on the spot as manager, which like is still weird because no one has even like sniffed him as manager since.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I think that kind of hurt him. But he
Yeah.
also a very solid defensive guy. I think he was also a very good clubhouse guy once he kind of became that seasoned veteran. Like with the Mets, I know there was like he got booed early in his first season.
Oh, he
He
sure
hits a
did.
big
Yeah.
home run,
Yeah.
and was it Julio Franco that kind of pushed him out of the dugout to take a curtain call?
Yeah. 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 That's a good memory on you. Yeah, absolutely. He had only 16 home runs in his first year with the Mets. You know.
That's insane. But
Yeah.
you could tell the pressure of the big contract and like the high expectations really got to him early on.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then like when he was with the Yankees, I think he was a really good clubhouse guy. And also obviously with the Astros and a couple of the other random guys. But one of the things I think that sticks out with Carlos Beltran, he kind of helped both of our teams in very interesting trades because he was part of the Zach Wheeler trade to the
Yes.
Giants, right?
Yep. 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 That was straight up trade. They got Zach Wheeler from, minor leagues, who was the top minor league pitcher at the time, straight up for Carlos Beltran at the trading deadline that year.
So that was a big trade for the Mets.
Yep.
Obviously, didn't work out in the end with Zach,
Yeah.
but the Yankees got a Zach of their own through Carlos Beltran because they traded him to Texas for young prospect Dylan Tate, who was the key piece in the Yankees getting Zach Britton,
Oh,
who
okay.
obviously had a few really good seasons with the
It
Yankees.
did.
I
Yeah.
believe there's other people that were in that trade that led them to get someone else, but I'd have to look it up. I didn't look it
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited for them. Jeff Kent too. Um, the second baseman with the most home runs in Major League history. He should have
Yeah.
gotten it a long time ago.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. All right. So let's look at, let me pull up. So the ballot, Chase Utley now comes the closest. He had 59.1%. Andy Pettit is at 48.5%. And I made a mistake. I think Andy Pettit, that was his eighth. So I think Andy Pettit would technically have two more years of eligibility. And then Felix Hernandez, is at 46.1%, made a big jump. And Manny Ramirez, that was his final go around. And the Veterans Committee ain't voting him in. Unfortunate that one of the best hitters of all time, he won't be in. And then A-Rod is before Manny at 40%. Um, and so let me stop there. The other interesting name for me is Jimmy Rollins, especially since Chase Utley is starting to creep up there. Jimmy Rollins is at only 25% in his fifth year of eligibility. Dustin Pedroia was kind of a peer of theirs, but I thought, his career was sort of cut short, and he's only at 20%. Uh, Omar Vizquel, I think, is dropping at 18%. I think because of the off the field stuff with him. But Met fans are keeping an eye on David Wright. I don't think David Wright will get in on the regular committees. This was only his third year, and he's still only at 15%, of the vote. So let me come back to you here. Um, so what are your thoughts there with Utley, Pettit, maybe even Jimmy Rollins, King Felix?
Um, well, I think Andy Pettit's got a shot.
Yeah,
Um, kind of an outside shot. I think out of all of like the PED guys, I think he might have the best shot because I think some people really appreciate honesty and him being like, "Yeah, I took it and I'm sorry."
yeah,
Um, but I don't know. I could be wrong with that.
yeah,
Um, Chase Utley's an interesting one because I kind of lean that Chase Utley really isn't a Hall of Famer.
yeah,
Like I think he's pretty good, but like if you're looking at some of those Philly guys, like Jimmy Rollins, I think had a better peak, won an MVP, but also like didn't have that long of a career.
Yeah.
Same with I don't even think he's getting close, but Ryan Howard,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I would argue that he had a better peak
Oh, he had some
Chase
outstanding
Utley.
years. Yeah, he had some great years, but he came up a little bit like, and then remember he sat behind Jim Tomei for a couple of years too. Which
Yeah,
I think sort of hurt him. How about Felix Hernandez?
Felix had the biggest jump of any uh player
Yeah.
ever, or I think since like in the 21st century or something. Like he had like a huge jump.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
also like he had an excellent like you talk about like that 3 or 4 year stretch. Reminds me a lot of Johan Santana. Like he was really good, he was dominant, but it also didn't last that
Yeah. Yeah.
long.
Yeah.
Like he has 169 wins,
Yeah.
but a 3.42 ERA. He has
Yeah.
the same ERA plus as Andy Pettit actually.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
like I don't know. I just feel like it's probably not long enough. He had 2,500 strikeouts though, so
Yeah. He was. I mean, he was dominant. He had a very short window, right, where he was dominant. Did he win one or two Cy Youngs? I think he won just one, right?
I think one.
I
Hold
think he was like
on.
13 and 12 was his record,
Yeah,
and he won. Yeah. I don't know. The rest of none of those guys really excite me that much, except Andy Pettit. I've been really clear that I thought for years that he was a Hall of Famer. Um, and again, this is where I come in with the postseason as well. But Andy Pettit. Should have won that Cy Young that I think it was Pat Hankton won. I thought he should have won it that year, but nobody else really excited. Jimmy Rollins and Chase Utley, and again, um, I don't want to be biased because I didn't like those Philly teams, because they used to kill the Mets, but both excellent players. But they don't scream Hall of Fame to me. You know, Felix Hernandez maybe, but Andy Pettit definitely out of that whole group, aside from the obvious Alex Rodriguez and Manny Ramirez. No one else in that group really screams Hall of Fame to me. Um, let me read to you, Kenny, the 2027 eligibles, and I'll just go right down the list real quick because these are some names that you're like, oh man, I forgot about him. Jake Arrieta, Jay Bruce, Asdrubal Cabrera. Here's one of your guys, Starlin Castro, Wade Davis, very good closer, Dexter Fowler, Todd Frazier, who had good years with both teams, Mets and Yanks, Brett Gardner, J.A. Happ, Scott Kazmir, John Lester, Andrew Miller, Mitch Moreland, Buster Posey, Irvin Santana, Kyle Seager, Joakim Soria, Ryan Zimmerman, Jordan Zimmerman. All right, let me come back to looking at you here. There's a couple of names that are relatively obvious, right? That'll be favorites there. What names on that list excite you?
basically none of them. Um, I think the only guy that might have a shot would be Buster Posey.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I'm thinking.
Won an MVP,
Yeah,
3 time champion. But I believe he would be one of the guys with like the lowest hit total of any Hall of Famer. But
yeah,
like also as a catcher, and that's not something that you're that annoyed at. So,
yeah. Well, I'm with you on Buster Posey. That again, I think his career ended prematurely, but I think you have to start looking at guys like that that had that short window and because of injury. Obviously, he got run over at the plate, and he was never the same after his leg injury. But he was on those championship teams, the anchor of those championship teams with the Giants. He won an MVP, so I think he's the guy that you would think out of that group. I'm surprised though you didn't say John Lester. And is that because he's a Red Sox known for? But let me take a step back though, because John Lester, we think of him with the Red Sox, and again, I'm gonna add postseason in. I don't have his postseason stats up, but he was very good in the postseason with the Red Sox. And then if I remember when the Red Sox knew that he was gonna be a free agent, they peeled him off, and I think they sent him to Oakland. And he had that one big game, that wild card game where he like pitched like 9 shutout innings or something like that. and then he goes to the Cubs, and he's money in the postseason with the Cubs. So, and I think he had some very good regular seasons. So I think he's a guy that's going to get some traction. So, what are your thoughts on John Lester? Be honest.
Uh, I think he's good. Like,
Okay, that's
okay,
fair.
I have his stuff up.
Yeah,
In 2016, Cubs win the World Series. He finishes second in Cy Young voting.
yeah,
Here are his numbers. They're really good. 19 and 5,
yeah,
2.44 ERA. He had two complete games, over 200 innings,
yeah,
197 strikeouts.
yeah.
ERA plus of 171. Who the heck won the Cy Young?
I don't remember. That was 2015,
16.
2016.
Oh, oh, duh. Okay. Max Scherzer won it, and he
Okay.
deserved it.
Oh, yeah, agree.
20 and 7,
Yeah,
a 2.96 ERA, he had 284 strikeouts.
yeah. Scherzer was great.
Scherzer was a lot better.
First ballot Hall of Famer Scherzer. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Bill Belichick's not, but
Yeah.
um, all right. But I'm gonna pull up his postseason pitching because
Yeah.
he won three titles.
Yes.
Overall, he played in. He started 22 games. He appeared in 26. I'm assuming a couple like random relief
Sure.
outings.
Yeah.
9 and 7,
Right.
which kind
Eh,
of hard to do wins losses, but
eh,
2.51 ERA in 154 innings.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean that's pretty good.
You would want listen, would you hand your would you hand the ball to him if you had a game seven? I certainly would have. You
Yeah,
know,
I would.
yeah, I think Lester's going to get a lot of consideration, I think. You know, but aside from take out the Red Sox thing, he's a very likable dude as well. You know, his only thing, remember, he couldn't throw to first base. And that was just that used to kill him too. You know, he just had this whole thing where he couldn't get past a block of throwing to first base. Um, there's nobody else I don't think on that list that's going to come, close. Jake Arrieta had a couple of really good years, won a Cy Young, but flamed out also, pretty quickly. We see that with unfortunately, with a lot of players, right? They'll hit their peak and then they kind of flame out. But I think Posey and Lester are your two that it'll be interesting. I'm not sure that either one. Well, I am sure that Lester isn't a first ballot, but I'm not sure that Posey is a first ballot Hall of Famer either. So I don't know.
Uh,
I think Posey will
well,
get in though. If I was to, you know, say over the next 5 years, I think Posey will get in. I think Lester will eventually. You know, um,
um, I'll add another stat here for Leicester.
yeah,
4-1, 1.77 ERA, 35 innings, 34 strikeouts in the World Series.
yeah. Wow. Okay,
Um,
there you go. Yeah, he was. Listen, he was money in those big games. He really was. But he pitched in a lot of because of the teams he was on. He pitched in a lot of big games, and but I thought he rose to the occasion. All right, not a ton else to talk about in baseball. Framber Valdez still out there. Luis Arraez still out there. Still a few really good free agents, but I think most of the moves have now been made. Eugenio Suarez still out there. So we'll see though as we come close now to pitchers and catchers reporting what's going to happen with some of these guys and where they're going to go. It looks like some of these guys may be sniffing some short-term deals, but I take it, because there's a lot of teams that can use Valdez. A lot of teams, I think you and I said that, Araz as well as Suarez and his power. So Ken, I want to have a conversation about the NBA. The Knicks seem to right the ship here a little bit. 4 wins in a row now, and a really good win last night against Toronto. They were didn't play well, probably for about the first 2.5 quarters. They played pretty well towards the end of the first half, got it in there. But then the fourth quarter, they took over. Mikal Bridges and Josh Hart were great. We talked already about Lakers, Cavs. The Cavs have now righted the ship. They're 29 and 20. So they're starting to really now move in the direction where I start to get a little nervous in terms of the teams that could take out the Knicks in the playoffs. Add the Cavs to that list, the Celtics, as well as obviously Detroit. But the Knicks are now tied for back to second place in the conference with the Boston loss last night. I don't know that the standings are all that important, right? Of where the Knicks, land. I just don't want them in the play-in, which I can't see that in any scenario. But they seem to right the ship. But here's now a reckoning is coming. February 5th, coming up pretty quickly, right? That's a week from today is the NBA trade deadline, and all we're looking at now is Giannis, right? John Morant as well, but John Morant is also hurt, so he may be on Memphis for the rest of this year. But it looks like the window here for Giannis is wide open for a team to get him, and there's only a few teams I think that can get him, and I'll just name them. I think the Bulls, the Heat. And then we've got the Warriors, who Shams say are going to probably go full blast to try to get him. But then it's the Knicks, and it came out, that like in September that the Knicks did, call up the Bucks and make an offer. They never leaked out what that offer was. But if the Knicks go after Giannis, it is going to mean breaking up this team as it is. Now I saw a proposal from another NBA insider that said it would work salary wise, where Giannis and his brother's going to go in any trade, I think. Giannis and his brother come to the Knicks for Karl Anthony Towns and Deuce McBride, as well as a swap draft picks so that the Bucks have a higher pick. Something about draft picks being swapped around where the trade would work salary wise and probably satisfy the Bucks to get an established NBA star. I'll say Karl Anthony Towns is still a star, and Deuce McBride is just a invaluable Nick, right through now. So I think it's one thing if you put Towns in a trade for Giannis, but some things you start including like Mikal Bridges. I definitely don't want OG Anunoby to go anywhere the way he's playing. Um, Anybody else I think is fair game. So I think it has to start with Towns, and then you can add some other pieces there. But if the Bucks talk to the Warriors and it starts with Kuminga, 23 years old, untapped potential there, and then they add a couple of their pieces, and I think they have more draft choices that they can flip over to. They won't be high draft choices. They can flip over to the Bucks. The Bucks may look at that. Now you put Giannis on Golden State with Curry. Whew. But you put Giannis on New York with Brunson, and it's also whew. So I really want to hear your thoughts here. Should the Knicks dive all in here? Should they take a gamble, wait till the offseason for this? It's apparent that one way or another, Giannis' days in Milwaukee are done, right? Either in this trading deadline or in the offseason. I suspect it's in this trading deadline, but anxious to hear what you think.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like there's a couple other teams because you had mentioned Miami.
Yep.
You mentioned Golden State. San Antonio could be a very interesting
Oh
spot,
boy. Wow.
especially you add Giannis to like Giannis and Wembanyama. You're
God.
not scoring in the paint at all. Like
Oh
just
God.
forget about
Yeah.
it. I think you might be able to swing some maybe not with Houston, but that would be interesting having him paired with KD.
Oh,
Um, but I think, well, first of all, I think that the Knicks shouldn't trade in the season. I know this is
okay.
like
Okay.
this is the window. Like this is the time. This is the biggest opportunity the Knicks will have to win a championship in the next like 5 years.
Okay.
I mean, Halliburton's hurt, Tatum's hurt, and obviously Giannis could get traded. So like I understand that this is the window. This is the opportunity. I want to see this team and see how far they can
Okay.
go.
Okay.
Now, the other thing that really concerns me is Giannis is hurt with a calf injury. Calf injuries tend to lead to Achilles tears.
Right.
So I would hate for the Knicks to try to rush him back a little bit or him be so eager to get back that he's not fully healthy.
Yeah.
Tears his Achilles, and then you lose basically 2 years of this window. Because like if he gets hurt in February, March, then
Oh
that's
yeah,
kind of it.
yeah.
Um, so part of me says like I'm still open. Like if the Knicks trade for Giannis today, I'm not gonna be like, oh gosh, like a little nervous. Like I'll be thrilled, and we're gonna make it work. But my thing is, I'd rather see how far this team can go under Mike Brown, see how they can navigate potentially this Eastern Conference the way it is, and then if it's not working, then we kind of go from
Okay. Um, Ken, you're
there. Okay.
very definitive on that. I'm I'm still torn. Because part of me envisions, and I'll tell you what Ernie Johnson said last night in a second. Um, but I envision Brunson with Giannis, OG, Mikel, Josh Hart, and I just replaced Giannis, let's say, with Cat. Um, I'm excited about this team. I think that Cat will right the ship. He had a phenomenal game. Last night was one of those games where, and I forgot how many rebounds he ended up with. But last night was one of those games where, like Toronto, as a bunch of teams in the NBA, they don't have anybody that matches up with Karl Anthony Towns. They really don't. But Giannis is a winner. He is still, I think, in his prime. I think you got another good 5, 6 years out of him. Um, and so part of me envisions that. So I'm sitting really still on the fence on that. I definitely wouldn't break the team up. We've been down that road, i.e. Carmelo, that year where the team was just going great and they traded the whole team, for him. Um, and so I wouldn't be in on that. But if you're, and I love McBride. I think he's been their most improved player this past year. But you'd have to give up something to get something too, right? And Towns is it's not enough to just get Giannis. So if you put McBride in there, I'm suspecting that the Bucks will say, okay, let's start with Towns and Bridges, and then we can go from there, which I really don't want to do because, Bridges again last night, I think he had 30 points. I don't think we've seen the full potential with Bridges with the Knicks just yet. We saw it with Phoenix and we saw it with the Nets. We haven't seen it on the Knicks just yet. So I'm still a little bit torn. It's a gamble to wait till the off season, but I think that for me, here's why I lean more towards waiting till the off season, like you do, because one or two things are going to happen. You'll have a team that went to the finals or even won the championship, I think, or they were a bust in the playoffs, right? They got knocked out, let's say, in the second round or conference finals. If it's one way or another, right? You're saying, okay, we had our run. This team took us as far. Now we're going to add Giannis to this, and here we go. We're going to be the favorites next year, to win the finals. Or okay, we flamed out. We got to do something, right? So either way, in the offseason, to me, it makes more sense you know. But with that said, if he does get traded and is traded deadline, that's it. Window's closed. He's not gonna get traded twice. You know what I mean? He's not gonna go to Golden State and say, okay, trade me to the Knicks over the summer. You know what I mean? He's gonna wherever he goes, he's gonna be there probably for the rest of his career, or at least for a couple of years. So that you can't run a franchise like that too, right? I got to get him to keep him away from other teams. But as a fan, that worries me. I'm not so worried if he goes to Golden State. He's in the Western Conference. You know the teams I'm worried about. I'm worried about Miami. I'm worried about Chicago. I'm worried about the teams in our conference. Um, if he goes to, um, what do you think is going to happen? What's your gut?
My gut is that he gets traded in the offseason.
Okay.
Um, and like you said, I think it depends on who gets eliminated. Like if Miami kind of flames out,
Yeah.
I can see them trying to go for him. If the Knicks, God forbid, exit early, I think the Knicks really
Oh yeah.
hit the button on him.
Yeah.
I think it depends on
Yeah.
who
Okay.
needs him.
Okay. And all the talk has really shifted away from John Morant, um, because he also is hurt. I don't think his injury is as serious as Giannis. um, but do you see him going anywhere at the deadline?
No, I think they're going to keep him and then
Okay.
kind of see. I think again at the in the off season.
Yeah. Yeah. That'd be a good plan B for the Warriors. And I think that the Grizzlies would probably take Kuminga straight up. I don't know if the salaries would work. It probably doesn't. They'd probably have to add more. But I could see them saying, okay, yeah, just to get to get this guy off the team, let's do it. All right. Going to be really, really interesting. Any other NBA notes stuck out for you this past week?
Now, LeBron was teary at the video tribute the Cavs had. It makes me think that he'll announce a retirement towards the end of the year.
Do you think so? I think that because his contract with the Lakers is up, I think that he's going to play one more year with the Cavs. I
I can
think,
see that.
yeah, I could see that he'll go sign, minimum, deal so that he can finish his career in Cleveland. He would have announced it, I think, by now. Although he is a little bit, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? He's a little bit spontaneous, LeBron too, but he also plans
Yeah.
everything out, carefully. You know the highlights that they showed. Do you remember that game? I don't think you watched it with me. I think because it was on late, even though it was Detroit. They beat Detroit in those when they went to the finals the first time and got swept by San Antonio. He had an unbelievable conference finals against the defending champion Pistons. And I think he scored their last 25 points. The game went into overtime, and they just kept feeding it to him, and he just kept shooting, and he wouldn't miss. And I think that's the highlights that they showed last night, which apparently they hadn't shown that game or highlights from that game in the other times that he's returned. That wasn't his first time back in Cleveland, so I'm sure, he's had tributes before, but probably he hadn't thought about that game in years. It was 2007. So that's 19 years ago. So that's what made him tear up. All right, you ready for this inspiration?
Let's do it.
All right, Sam Donald. Sam Donald and Jackson Smith Najiba are the two inspirations for me this week. I'm gonna pull up. I'll save it for next week because we'll do our Super Bowl thing. I've said this a few times where I've compared Sam Donald to Jim Plunkett. Plunkett, you wouldn't know before your time. He was 1970 Heisman Trophy winner and came out with really big expectations. His career it's kind of mirroring Sam Donald. I mentioned last week, my buddy Perry said, don't do that comparison yet because he hasn't won a Super Bowl yet, because Jim Plunkett won two. So I'll save that. But just the way this guy played and the way he's handled himself, the way he's never put down the Jets or any of these four teams that gave up on him. He's such a class guy, and to see him get that success is great. I'll get more into him next week. But Jackson Smith Najiba, he said a few interesting things. He was one of the first interviewed right after the game, and he said he gives all glory to God. But he has said a few interesting things that how his career really took off when he just trusted fully in the Lord. And I think that is such it's such a great word for all of us when we could just have that complete and total trust. It doesn't mean that, he's going to win a Super Bowl. And he was saying it doesn't mean that I'm going to be just crazy successful all world. He said, but I know that with every play that the Lord is with me and I give full glory to him, that I know that I'm going to do well. There's going to be days where I don't, and that's fine. I give glory to him as well. But it's just when I gave that full, he says, my career was floundering until I gave my full self to him, and you just give that glory, to God, and credit these networks now where they used to cut people off when they would start talking about God. Fox didn't; they let him continue to talk, which was great, and it was Aaron Andrews that was interviewing him right after the game. And anyway, I thought that was really inspirational, really good message. So both Sam Darnold and Jackson Smith Najiba from the Seahawks, inspiration this week.
Yeah, that's great. I hope. Well, we'll do Super Bowl picks next week, so I won't say
Yeah.
definitely. I hope for they win, but um, mine actually kind of goes back to the Rams here, because a story I talked about a lot. I think it's a good example of how the Bible kind of says comfort those that are hurting. Um, Not a direct scripture, but like kind of the vibe. Um, and I think of Alex Vesia, who obviously like
Yeah.
World Series, was dealing with the loss of his newborn daughter. Horrible time. Apparently, the Rams created a signed jersey with his number name, like a Rams jersey. All the players signed it and handed it off to him. So
Wow.
just as like a gesture to say,
Yeah.
hey, we're still here. We're praying for you. Because I think also like people think about the people like in the moment, but
Yeah.
still like they're not that far away from a horrible tragedy that happened in their family. So
No.
I'm glad that they did that.
Wow. That is awesome. I did not see that. I'm so glad you pointed that one out. That is so awesome. Just a terrible story. But out of all darkness, right, there comes light. And so the Rams shedding that light, which is great. All right, bud. I think we're done for this week. Great stuff. We will have trade deadline stuff next week, one way or another. Because it'll be Thursday. If we do the show on Thursday, we'll be on the trade deadline day. And wouldn't that be something if they waited till like right at the end? Now, speaking of trade deadline, real quick, did you see that that MLB pushed this back a few days? That it's like August 3rd now. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting.
yeah.
So, I didn't say this. I forgot this. Ernie Johnson pulled up something last night. No team that has made a big trade for a star at the trading deadline has won the championship in that same year. So,
Trade him
uh,
in the offseason.
yeah,
Let's
yeah.
keep moving.
Yeah, because basketball, there's a lot to get used to, right? Players have a feel for each other, and without training camp and stuff, it's hard to do. All right, Kenny, take us home.
All right, this is Kenny Squared N.
Kenny.
The Sports on the Positive Tip. We'll see you guys next week.